see if it works now. Okay, yeah, the echo disappeared. Petro, can the persons who are not speaking mute themselves?
Sorry?
Mute.
Mute, okay.
Okay, thanks. Keta, I think you should mute if you're not speaking. Otherwise, we'll have an echo on the call. Okay, great. I think it's working now.
Okay.
Okay, Alex, if you could mute also. Okay, great. So we'll see how I guess we'll have more people joining along the call. Anyway, I founded Fordaq 25 years ago. We run, I think, the website which everybody knows, and also has a software division which manages a few other products called Tariffs, NeuroGrader, and a few others. And Keta is well, we're working together on a few things. Keta manages Madison Lumber, which is her baby, which is a publication in North America on softwoods. She's very knowledgeable of the North American softwood market, and in general of the obviously based. She's based in Vancouver, where a big part of the industry is in North America, and the let's say that part of the world has been affected pretty early on by the policies of the new Trump administration. And so she's pretty well qualified to speak about this topic. And I think, Keta, you prepared a presentation for today to introduce the topic. And then I think what we will do afterwards is we'll open the floor, because there'll probably be questions. And I guess also a lot of you have information which might be useful for other participants. About what's happening in the various markets as the policies of the Trump administration evolve in a rapid way. So, Keta, I'll let you speak.
And I think it's good to say that we are recording this webinar. So if your colleagues they are not able to join, then we'll send the links and some material, so you will be able to share and with your colleagues. Keta, we don't hear you. Maybe you are still muted. Not muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Yeah, please. Welcome,
Okay.
Keta.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keta Kosman. I publish Madison's Lumber Reporter. We track 500 individual softwood lumber and panel commodity prices all across North America once a week. The company was started in 1952. I'm the third owner. I was hired in 2003, and I took over in 2008 when my boss retired. So we do a market survey on Thursdays. I have an analyst who talks to all of the different region for species and grade of lumber. It's construction framing lumber. And Thursday evening, we publish the new data update, goes into my dashboard with the commentary explaining what happened, why the prices are changing, and my customers log in Friday morning and see the new updates. Myself, I do some other topics. We have some other newsletters, and I attend at conferences. So just last week I was in Vancouver. I'm based a little bit in interior British Columbia, and there was a couple of meetings in Vancouver, and last month in Prince George with industry. So I have the latest update. This was One was just British Columbia, but the other was North America and had some global attendance. So lots of updates for you guys right now. And I do have a presentation and then ready to take a question, have a discussion afterward. Do
Great,
you
and
want?
thank you for, yeah,
Sorry.
thank you for introduction. Yeah, you know,
Should I start the presentation?
yeah,
Yeah,
Benoit,
go ahead.
so
Go ahead.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think,
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, Keta, go ahead.
So I go share. Oh, wait. Okay. Can you see it?
yes, we see.
Great. So this is just a little, you can read this during the replay. That's just what I said, excuse me, about the company and what we do and some of the other products that we track. So what we have started doing a couple of years ago when the lumber futures on the Chicago Mercantile Exchange launched a new ticker for lumber. Previously had been Western spruce delivered to Prince George Inland Container Terminal. Now is a blend of 4 species. So what I've done here is I've made same construction using cash, which is the price that we print, showing you where the index is over the past few years. So this black line here is this year. And as you can see in the previous couple of years when things were very volatile, that time is over and we are in a more regular up and down cycle of prices. Prices are on the lower side, I would say, toward the bottom of where it can be for the mills to be losing money, and at least not super high situation that was a one-time thing and will likely not happen again. So right now the index for Friday's print was US $470 per thousand board feet, which is down from the previous week and is down from 1 month ago. Here you see the prices, like I said, compared to 1 month ago, and then up compared to the same week the previous year, and up compared to 2 years ago. So this indicates that there's a bit of stability returning to industry after all that volatility. There are questions of, you know, people ask, what is the new normal, or where are the lumber prices going to land? We can at least say that we know where is the bottom here, you know, about $400, and we don't have that extreme volatility of from 2020 to 2022. This is the pure price for that benchmark item, Western spruce, pine fir, KD 2x4 number 2 and better. This item comes out of British Columbia, Alberta, Washington State, Oregon, and a little bit out of Idaho, is preferred by the builders and is used in the highest volume across North America. So this blue line is 2025, and the yellow line is last year, and then this pink line is the year before. So you can see what I'm saying about stability returning to the prices, and historically, the seasonal annual cycle up and down throughout a year would be about $150 per thousand board feet. So it would top out, we say close to 500, and bottom around 325. And that is a more normal cycle of price change throughout, you know, as the construction season. This increase here in the earlier part of this year, part of that would be normal seasonal buying, home builders making their purchases from the mills and the wholesalers in advance of expected construction season. But also this was a sharp increase due to the threat of the tariffs that was coming out of the US, which nobody knew what was going to happen, and it created a lot of confusion. People didn't know how to respond. So by April here, where it was announced that lumber would not have a tariff, this price settled back down. So you can see here where, for example, compared to 1 year ago, again, this price is up, and compared to 2 years ago, also up a little bit. This is we call this the benchmark prices used most often across North America. So at the top here is that Western spruce that you were just looking at. The second line is Southern yellow pine on the east side. And then the third line, these are 2x4. The third line is Eastern spruce. This comes out of Quebec and New York State. These three items are interchangeable. They all meet the building code. The builder or contractor can choose from among them depending on what price. So we like to compare how these prices are moving up and down. This is compared to last week. And here we have compared to last month. As I said, returning to a more stable level. The next item is studs. Western spruce, you can't build a house without some kind of studs. Similar up and down price change. And then Douglas fir. This is a very popular product, very loyal architects and builders on the US Eastern Seaboard, and is also used for high-end custom home building in places like Florida, Texas, and California. The bottom line is softwood plywood. Again, you need plywood to build a home, and plywood prices, OSB and plywood prices do not necessarily follow exactly what's going on with the dimension lumber items. There are fewer manufacturers of panel products, and often they are not publicly traded, so they don't have to report. So they are more disciplined, and they do not let the price fall below cost of production. If the customer counter offers lower than the panel mill is willing to accept, they simply go off the market and do not sell. These are the same prices you were just looking at as a graph, a 2-year rolling price history, monthly averages. So this pink line is that Western spruce, this blue line is that Eastern spruce, and this yellow line is a Southern yellow pine. Now, the reason this yellow line is moving slightly at a different trend than the Western spruce and the Eastern spruce is precisely because of those threats of the tariff. At the end of last year and in the early months of this year, there was 3 individual responses to the potential tariff coming on. People will remember that we already have a duty. So there already is a constraint on Canadian lumber to cross the border to the US, and a tariff on top of that would make the constraint quite high. So one response was that customers bought the wood that they thought that they would need for March, April, May, and hoped that it would cross the border before the tariff would trigger. The other response was not buy anything and just wait and see. And the third response in the east side of the US was to switch from this Eastern spruce to this Southern pine. That appetite for a change topped out, and that price corrected back down. What this indicates to me, because we look at how these 3 prices relate to each other all the time, it indicates to me that there is a top to how many people are willing to switch from Eastern spruce to Southern pine. And we reached that, then reverted back to buying from the northern species. Then you have the green line is the Douglas fir I showed you. The purple line is the studs. And then this, again, softwood plywood prices have their own momentum, and that you can see by this gray line. These images are all straight from my dashboard. There's a lot more data in there, but the overview, this is what my customers can see when they first log in before they start playing to see their own respective whatever material it is that interests them the most. So at the moment we have now in coming into second quarter, very much confusion. People are not sure what's going on because the housing construction activity is very muted and there is so much uncertainty with macroeconomic conditions. The political leaders making decisions, changing their mind, making announcements at the last minute is very difficult for industry. Sawmills plan quite a bit in advance. They need to book loggers to bring the timber to the mill. Just making a decision 1 week after another is not how sawmills operate. And also the mortgage lending, because that of course affects how much real estate activity, which then drives new housing construction. So for the past couple of almost 3 years now, the customer habit has been what we call just-in-time buying, which is to only get the wood that they need, that they know that they have for existing projects. No one is stocking inventory. When you combine that with sawmill being curtailed, as people probably heard, a lot of sawmills taking downtime over the past couple of years in the heavily invested, optimized mills in the north. The mills are made to run at more than 90% of capacity. And a couple of years ago, it was not even 70%. It's a little bit better now, but there is a huge amount of volume of lumber that has not been in production for a couple of years. And the customers are just continually ordering from the mill week over week what they know what they need. If there is a spike in an increase in buying, or on the supply side, some kind of issue, for example, fire or transportation issue that causes a delay in delivery, there are going to be people caught short without wood that they need for immediate purposes. So this is housing starts against my index that I was showing you that first slide. We have the purple line is total housing starts, and the green line is single family 1 unit housing starts. Single family housing starts are most important for the lumber industry. It's the largest component of new home building and uses the most wood. And so discounting the big volatility, 2021 and 2022, the stability is returning. There's some up and down month over month, but the prices of the lumber and the amount of housing construction trend lines match up quite well. And that's why we talk about housing a lot. My lumber prices come out once a week for that week, whereas housing starts come out once a month for the previous month. So there's always a little bit of a lag in letting people know what's going on with construction activity. So the builder sentiment is low, and the patience of industry for how long will it take for new housing to pick back up, we thought would be last year. And this year also does not look so far like very much housing is going to happen. It's early days yet. And an important thing to draw your attention to is not just new housing construction, but reconstruction after disaster like the storms or fire, which is happening more and more now and takes a little bit away from what we used to know as seasonality. If there's a fire at a strange time of year, or in America, the storms have been coming earlier. This is unknowns that people cannot plan for and have difficulty to respond to. So the lack of inventory is making the rush to buy from the sawmill much more apparent than it is during a normal time when the customer can buy from a wholesaler or a reload and make a better deal and get a price that they want.
Keta,
Yeah.
Just a small question. I don't know how many slides do you have more? Just to have an idea.
I'm almost. This is the last one.
Okay, great. So
am I going to? I'm almost done.
Yeah, no, okay, that's great.
So yeah, okay. So the last point here is the Canadian lumber production data against sawmill sales. And this is a very interesting graph. The blue lines are production and the red line is sales. And if you can see here, since this year, the manufacturing volumes are down a little bit, as I was saying, but the sales are up, which indicates a better price. The mills are able to sell at a little bit of a higher price than the past couple of years. And then we just need this production volume to increase back to what it had been in previous years, and industry will be operating back at higher manufacturing volumes as they were prior to 2020.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So obviously this presentation was heavily focused on North American softwoods, which is the expertise of Keta, and also a big part of the global market for softwoods. It's also the market that's been most affected by the policies in the US. And so, Keta, I have a question for you, because I was at the Montreal Wood Conference recently. Yeah. So when I spoke there with mills and buyers, the market was a bit not moving much. Buyers were waiting for price reductions, sitting on inventory, and mills were sort of waiting for what the tariff policy was going to, what was going to happen, because I think in August is when the US is hitting Canada with higher tariffs, and therefore a lot of mills are waiting to see what's going to happen, because they don't want to absorb higher tariffs and lower prices. Can you just give us a small insight on that, and then we'll jump on, we'll see if there's questions on the North American market, and then we'll touch a word on what's happening elsewhere. Go ahead.
Sure. So yes, in April, we were still unsure what was happening. And since then, if you were looking at the graph, prices did drop. So last week we saw more interest coming to make some purchases, and we are working on today getting the next update for this week. So what I think is the customers came back to make the purchases now that the price they agree is at the bottom. So it's likely that there will be more volume sold and the price will stay the same for a little while. Just really quick so we have a softwood lumber duty, and a duty is not a tariff. It's two different things. I know that people use them. A duty is a constraint on the importer and is collected on the Canadian side of the border by Customs and Border Protection from the company selling the lumber into America. And it is held at the Commerce Department itemized by which company paid how much. A tariff is collected on the domestic side in the US before the product can continue and is sent to the Treasury with no record of who shipped it. So the duty, when there is a resolution, there is expectation that that money will get returned or given back, at least to Canada. Until, as you said, August or September, the duty right now is approximately 15% and is going to more than double. It's been announced. The final determination will come later this year and is expected to go to 35%. This will definitely incentive Canadians to diversify and send lumber to other markets. The reason the US is such a huge consumer of Canadian lumber is because it's so easy to just ship across the border. If there is going to be such a high cost for Canadians to send wood to America, freight is not even 35%. So they can find customer from the West Coast in Asia and, excuse me, from the East Coast in Europe, where the constraint of shipping is still not as high as the duty. There's a couple of other things announced by America regarding timber that we can talk about a little bit later if you want to.
Okay, so that's I think a major point. The duties that will increase on, I think it's on the 22nd of August, because that might send a lot of volumes from Canada to let's say Asia and Europe. And strangely, right now there are no tariffs on imports from other regions, including Europe, on softwood lumber. So the Canadians, so we might be in a situation on the 22nd of August where basically Canadian mills will be out of the US market because it won't be profitable to sell there. And it will be actually that space could be taken by mills in Europe or Brazil, New Zealand, or other regions, because the US mills won't be, I think, already operating at close to full capacity, yellow pine. No? You think they still they could still take part of that market?
Yeah, so the Canadian lumber export to US over the past decades, because of the increasing duty, dropped from 85% to between 60 and 65%. So already Canada found different customers for 20% of our manufacturing. That will definitely drop. That 60%, the volume of Canadian lumber going to the US will fall below 60% now as the duty increases. If you look at it the other way, somewhere between 30 and 35% of all wood in the US at any time comes from Canada. So imagine also a drop there, right? And when I was saying that the Canadian sawmills are have been running at close to 80%, which is low, the US sawmills also have been reduced for the past couple of years due to this low housing starts. So there is volume available in the US to come back. The thing is that Southern pine is not preferred material for construction framing. Southern pine is often used for outdoor applications. It is a porous grain of wood with a nice yellow tint, takes treatment very well. So where in Canada, we use cedar for the outside of your cottage, and it lasts 100 years. In America, people redo their siding, redo their deck every 5 years or so, or a storm comes and rips the roof off and they have to rebuild anyway. So, and the other thing to keep in mind is the timber. So it's not just if the mills are able to make more manufacturing, but do they have enough logs? At the moment, the answer to that is yes.
Okay, so let me just summarize for the audience here, because I'm not sure everybody is that familiar with the US or North American market. So basically, the market in North America is dominated by Canadian production, which is spruce, pine, fir coming from obviously Canada, and then yellow pine, which is coming from the south of the US, southeast, let's say. And these are very different species. As you say, Keta, the southern yellow pine is, let's say, lower quality material. So the spruce and fir coming from Europe into the US is actually much closer to the Canadian production in terms of quality and types of use than southern yellow pine. So, and just a note, I think the volumes coming from Europe, it's more or less, I don't remember, but I think it was around 15% of the imports.
Of the imports, yes, but of consumption is very small.
No, of the imports. Of the
Yeah,
imports, and it doesn't go very far from the east coast of the US, so it
Right.
usually lands and then is distributed in the region around the ports on the east coast.
Okay, so just really quick, spruce pine fir also grows in the US. Okay, so in the west is British Columbia, Alberta, Washington State, Oregon, a little bit out of Idaho. And in the east is Quebec and New York State. Okay, so they do have SPF. And then yes, the southern pine grows in US South, has 3 regions, east, central, and west. And the other difference is that SPF comes from natural forest, and southern pine is very cultivated forest. It's 300 years of plantation. So they have a different agricultural landscape than we have, and it takes approximately 35 years for southern pine to come to maturity, whereas in the north, it takes 80 years for a lodgepole pine tree to be mature and merchantable for timber. And yes, the northern species of Europe, or for example, radiata pine from New Zealand, is more similar to the SPF that we have here in Canada.
Okay, so I think in the audience, I'm not sure. I mean, it's mainly people in Europe and North America, so I'm not sure how much they're into hardwoods or softwoods. But I think the point here when it comes to softwoods is obviously if nothing changes in US policy, meaning the duties which are planned on the 22nd of August actually happened, and we don't see tariffs, pointing in their nose for imports of lumber from Canada and other regions, and that is a definitive possibility because we know that the US Commerce Department is investigating lumber, so we won't go into details of that. But if that doesn't happen, then there is a definitive possibility after the 22nd of August that there will be a lot more Canadian softwoods going to other regions of the world. Europe could be one of them. And there is a big opportunity for European spruce, pine, fir producers to, at that stage, export more of their lumber to the US, possibly. So I think if we'll just stop a bit on that topic and take questions. And I see Mr. Abidov has a question. Do you want to go ahead?
Yes, please. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation. Very interesting. I have a follow-up question regarding these duties on Canadian lumber from 22nd of August. What about the Canadian OSB? We know that Canadian OSB producers are important exporters of OSB to U.S. market? Will they be also affected by the duties? Thank you.
So not right now. The duty is applied to 2x4 dimension lumber, 1x4 boards, and cedar. So with every round, we are in softwood lumber dispute number 5. With every round of dispute, the U.S. adds a greater range of product to apply the duty to. And at this time, panel, plywood, and OSB is not included.
Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know if there are other questions related to the North American softwood market.
I would ask the question, we're talking a lot about prices and growing rates, but what will happen with the logistics? What company they're talking about? If they will be able to find enough vessels to export to Asia and Europe, I think it can be more practical question for the companies how to adapt to changing supply chain. What Canadian companies talking about?
They will for sure already have been looking into that. So the issue of freight is difficult for everyone. I think in the context of what the US did with imposing a ridiculous level of tariff all over the world, put a lot of shock, and people, countries are looking to send their material to different markets regardless. And the supply chain is opening up. The previous constraint to, I mean, Canada would have loved to just ship all our lumber to Japan. You know, they have a wood building culture. The cost of sending overseas was prohibitive and now is more level in comparison to having this big duty going into the US. And the mills will have been already at the beginning of this year, because the initial announcement of the increase of the duty was done last year. So the search for container or ship has been ongoing already now. And it will be very interesting to watch as the data comes of where is Canada exporting through this year. And we will see how much success the offshore selling, how much that came to.
Thank you. Thank you for your answer.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Keta. So just to repeat something we already said, but to make sure everybody understands, lumber is not part of the reciprocal tariffs which the US has imposed on most of the world. And the reason is actually not great for everyone around the table, because lumber like pharmaceuticals or chips or steel is considered by the US administration as a strategic product, which it wishes to bring back production to the US. And that's why, like those other product groups I mentioned, there is a investigation being done by the US Secretary of Commerce under Section 232, which might result as well. It's not clear now, because for the other 3 or 4 product groups, I think it's quite clear that the US will impose tariffs which will be pretty high. For lumber, it's not that clear anymore, because I don't see this popping up in any of the recent declaration or, of any of the administration officials. But theoretically, the idea when they did this was to negotiate the reciprocal tariffs with the various nations and keep the tariffs on those strategic products moving forward to bring back production to the US. So that hasn't happened till now for lumber. Keta, you want to say something?
Yeah, when President Trump released that executive order that you're talking about, there was two. So there was one that they're doing a study to determine the availability of timber, and that's what I was talking about previously about the relationship between the log supply and the lumber manufacturing. So again, the southern pine timber comes off privately owned land that has been very cultivated and managed for a few hundred years. There is also timber on the U.S. Forest Service and Bureau of Land Management, so like the park or restricted areas, that is underutilized. And it's the same situation in Canada, that our park timber has, for the past 25, almost 30 years, not been harvested. And that's one of the reasons why we have such fire. So the US right now is studying how much merchantable timber is there, because not every tree can be made into lumber. So that was the one executive order, and it is due, the result is due given the date in November. And then the other one includes this Section 232 that you're talking about. And it is, to my mind, a very loosely worded statement, putting the importance of the question to say it is a national security issue. And I think that that was written in a way so that the president can make a decision unilaterally regarding if, for example, lumber does cause a national security issue in the US, in which case my expectation would be that it would be directed to more manufacturing in the US rather than importing more lumber from a wider range of countries. What I think they're trying to do is be self-serving domestically. And so at the end of this year, when the data results come back from these two studies, the idea, I would think, would be that they will be building more sawmills within the US to consume the lumber, to consume the timber off the public land more, and also continue off the private land as they have been doing until now.
That's interesting. And Keta, there is maybe another question from my side, which this question follows to all the changes. And if the United States and their company, they will start to produce more, they will increase their production volume, it will require more human resources. And I think that it might be risky for some companies is to face this risk when they will be not able to find and recruit people in their locations. And how do you think, or maybe you heard some ideas in Canada, it might lead to like migration crisis for workers, like sawmill operators?
So that particular issue has been ongoing for the forest industry here for quite a while now, as, for example, the loggers, the truckers, and the sawmill workers are aging, and the industry is not particularly attracting younger people. So for a few years, the different organizations, if they are trucking groups or timber harvesting or sawmills, have been doing educational push to bring younger people into that industry. It worked a little bit, but yes, the age of people retiring is surpassing the number of people coming in, new entrants into the business. Regarding the actual sawmills, not so much, the timber harvesting, but the sawmills, it's going to be a lot of automation. Like, part of what the US administration is saying contradicts its own self. So the Interfor newest mill, I think it was in Georgia, is almost entirely run from 2 people in a console, and the saw line is just machine. There are no people on it. So in terms of lumber manufacturing, there's probably a way to, they will have to pay people more. I mean, they will have to make it better, more attractive. My question is not so much about the sawmill as the timber harvesting and the
hauling,
and the trucking, because a log truck is not a lumber truck. It's two different people. So if they, and we've already seen that when there is an increase in demand and more sales, the bottleneck of delivery time stretched very long because they couldn't find equipment and worker to transport.
Okay, so that those will be constraints on the capacity of the US forest industry to compensate for less volumes coming from Canada. So I think, yeah, I think that probably gives a good overview of what's happening in softwoods in North America to the audience. On the hardwood side, obviously the dispute with Canada doesn't affect the US market that much, not directly, but on the other hand, the conflict, let's say, between the US and China has affected the hardwood industry in the US quite a lot, because exports to China have stopped, but might be turned back on now partially. I'm not sure with the 10% tariffs that the Chinese are imposing on US hardwood exports, if there is how much of a market there is there. I know that prices for US hardwoods in China have been rising quite significantly in the last weeks, months, especially for walnut. I don't know, Keta, do you have data points on that?
Excuse me. So hardwood is not construction framing. Hardwood is finishing. So it is used for a different purpose. And you're right, it is excluded from the duty. The hardwood industry across North America has had quite a difficult time, and the volume of manufacturing has been plummeting for 10 years or longer. There's a lot of applications for hardwood that the softwood industry has stepped into, and the volumes coming out of softwood are much greater. And so the hardwood folks are getting pushed out. They are working right now to try to offset the change in the appetite of the customer. And there are offshore markets that are interested in North American hardwood products. So again, diversifying is the plan. I'm not sure how much exactly goes to China.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I know that. So it's roughly half of the volumes produced in the US that were exported in hardwoods, and about half of that was going to China.
Okay.
In the past. So obviously what's happened in the last weeks and months has been pretty dramatic for those folks. I'm not sure now that tariffs have gone down from, let's say, prohibitive levels to the 10% which the Chinese are charging US imports. It's I suppose those volumes will be going back up, with the question mark on what happens within 90 days. And just as a side note, talking about the Chinese market, all of this has affected, obviously, the euro US dollar exchange rate over the the last weeks and months, but also indirectly the euro yuan renminbi exchange rate. And for that reason, exports from Europe to China have suffered as the euro has strengthened its exchange rate. So that's been after in the last days. This has improved slightly, but let's say a little bit. And so Chinese buyers that were holding up on imports from Europe have, let's say, started ordering a lot more suddenly. But we'll see how this plays out moving forward.
Well, if you compare the habit of purchasing in China of Canadian softwood, the Chinese are value buyers, so they are always looking for the bottom. And if they see that the price or it's attractive, they will swoop in and buy entire boatload of lumber. And then you might not hear from them again for some months. So it's not as steady of a customer as US, where they get their 40 rail cars every week or whatever, right? They might order in 2 months a huge volume, and then they don't like the price or whatever and step back. So that throughout the year it works out to different number.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let's see if we have questions remaining from the audience, and otherwise I think we'll wrap up this webinar.
Yes, please don't hesitate.
So
Just
if you
raise
want
your
to
hand
raise a
or
question,
turn on your
just
camera.
yeah. Okay, anybody wants to add anything, comment on this topic? No? Okay, great. Well, then in this case, I suggest we wrap up this webinar. Thanks a lot, Keta, for your presentation.
Thank you.
I think very helpful to understand what's happening with prices in North America in this, let's say, uncertain environment. And the main idea of the webinar was that to make people who are attending better aware of what's happening, but also of opportunities that this opens as supplies have to be rerouted.
Maybe
Thank
Benoit,
you.
in these terms, you can say how Fordaq can help, to attendees to act in this turbulent time, because not all the attendees they're members or users of Fordaq.
Yeah, obviously. So obviously, as you know, supplies need to be rerouted, and people need to find new buyers or suppliers around the world. Fordaq can be very helpful here because we have a huge base of buyers and suppliers on the platform, and the main objective is to help buyers connect with suppliers. So in situations where markets change, like now, we can be especially helpful to you. So if don't hesitate to reach out if you need help, and we'll be happy to help you. Thank you. Have a great day, and see you on the next webinar.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.